Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome in. This is our Flashpoints evening, and this is about our three stories of the night. Uh, Tonight's real stories. They're not just about Donald Trump, they're about what he thinks of you, because at some point, you got to ask yourself, do they really think we're this easy to play? Do they really think we don't have anything better to do than to have this much drama in our government every week? They've got stunts, they got props, food in the Oval Office. You got slogans like tax on tips being sold like life-changing things, which they're not. But when you actually break it down, it doesn't even help a lot of the people that they're showing it for. So what does this really mean? All of this stuff is to say it's a performance. And it only works if they think you're not going to look below the surface. Our first story.
Earlier this week at the White House, I met a wonderful woman named Sharon Simmons, a grandmother driving DoorDash to help support her husband's cancer treatment. She's got serious cancer. She's going to be okay, I think. Sharon delivered McDonald's to the Oval Office. It was a little bit of a, to be honest, it was a little tacky. They come up with these crazy ideas like McDonald's, although that was the biggest ever on Google. They say number one ever, and the garbage truck. I mean, we do these things in politics. They're a little embarrassing. They're a little tiny embarrassing, but we do them, and you win by landslides. It's one of them.
That's crazy. That right there, that admittance is crazy. In the Oval Office, place where wars get decided, economies get steered, real life consequences happen, and we got a staged DoorDash delivery with McDonald's to sell a tax policy? To sell a tax policy. Come on. That's not leadership. That's a skit. And here's the problem. It's not just this one moment, right? This is what politics is turning into. Some kind of facade, some kind of game. Instead of explaining the policy, instead of telling people straight up what a bill does, who it helps, who it doesn't help, we get props. We get grandma in a branded shirt. We get a bag of fast food. We get cameras, because that's easier than telling us the truth. Because the truth is boring. The truth is no tax on tips doesn't even help a lot of the people they're showing you. The truth is some of those workers already pay zero federal tax. The truth is they're still getting hit with payroll taxes. The truth is some might even lose money on those credits. So this is not the big, beautiful tax thing that they keep promoting. But you can't sell that with a McNugget photo op. So instead, they give you this kind of moment. They give you this relatable moment. Look at the regular people. Look, fast food. Look, tips. Meanwhile, the real issue, cost of living, healthcare, gig worker pay, that stuff takes work. That stuff takes trade-offs. That stuff doesn't fit in a 10-second clip. And let's talk about that DoorDash grandma angle for a minute. That's a real person with a real struggle, and they turned her into a marketing tool, a gag. That's the part that should bother people, because instead of respecting her story, they packaged it. Instead of explaining the policy, they performed it. And here's the part that really should make people pause. What does this say about how they think about you and me? Because this only works if they believe you won't look deeper than what they're saying. A lot of people don't want to look deeper. That's all I keep hearing people say. No tax on tip, no tax on tip. That doesn't do anything for the normal everyday person. Okay? They don't want you to ask questions. You'll just feel something, feel better because they did something for you, and move on. That's the bet, that you'll see the moment and not the math. Okay? And then to turn around and say, yeah, it's a little tacky. Yeah, it's a little embarrassing. He said that he said it today. But also, hey, people love it. We got a whole bunch of votes out of it. So which one is it? Is it beneath the office? Is it beneath the office of the dignity of the office, or is it a strategy? Because you don't get to call it embarrassing and then brag that it worked. That's talking out both sides of your mouth. Look, people aren't stupid. They know the difference between real policy and a staged moment. They live real lives. They know what their paycheck looks like. You can't lie to people about what their paycheck is. They know what their bills look like. A bag of McDonald's in the Oval Office don't fix that problem. Bottom line, this isn't about left or right. This is about being treated like an adult. Explain the policy, show the numbers, what politics turn it into, tell the people the trade-offs, stop trying to entertain them into agreeing, because this is what it is. It's a prop instead of a policy, moments instead of meaning. Then yeah, we're not being governed, we're being marketed to, and I don't like it. Second video.
Suddenly, when it was Scott Bessent's turn to speak, Trump was out cold, just completely asleep.
And I just want to thank President Trump for championing this program, because I can tell.
By the way, championing.
Some of the Republican, some of the more traditional Republican.
So as you can see, Trump just completely asleep.
So, look, you got Donald Trump, the same man who spent years calling Joe Biden sleepy, low energy, out of it. Joe Biden can't keep it up. Joe Biden. That was the brand. That's what everybody laughed at. That's what everybody thought. And now we're watching him on camera, eyes closed, head drooping, during conversations about taxes and the economy. Not a rally, not a speech, the actual work. And I need y'all to sit with that for a second, because some of y'all was out there laughing at Joe Biden. Okay, you don't get to build your entire identity around calling somebody tired and sleepy and this, that, and the third, and then turn around and be the one dozing off when it actually matters. That's not a small thing. That's, oh, he was just resting his eyes bullshit. No, this is the same man who told you, I understand tax is better than anybody. I'm the deal breaker. I'm the deal maker. I'll fix the economy. Okay, so if that's true, why are you struggling to stay awake while taxes are being discussed? Because let's be real about what's happening. At the same time this is going on, you're getting the show, you're getting the stunts, you're getting the McDonald's in the Oval Office, you're getting the no tax on tips moments, you're getting the cameras, the clips, the headline. When it's time to sit down in the room and actually deal with the details, that's when the energy drops. That's when it's this boring. This is people's money. This is what comes out of their checks. This is what they get back, or they don't get back. There's nothing boring about that to the people living every day. And that's where this disconnect is, because regular people don't get to check out. They don't get to say, you know what, this is boring, I'm going to close my eyes. They're dealing with rising costs, tight paychecks, confusing tax bills every day. So when they see the leadership looking, checking out the same topic, checking out of the same topic, yeah, that hits a little bit different. And here's the part nobody wants to say, this is a pattern. Big promises, simple slogans, no tax on tips, best economy ever, big bill deals, big beautiful deals. But when it gets complicated, when it takes focus, when it takes time, when it takes actual governing, that's where things start to slip. And then the excuses come in. It was long. I was resting my eyes. It got boring. No, you don't get that excuse. Not when you made this the big centerpiece of your whole campaign about Joe Biden. Not when you told everybody you were the one who could handle it. Not when you had everybody joking about our president. Because leadership is not a rally. It's not the camera moment. It's not the viral clip. It's when it's in the room and nobody looks. It's the meeting nobody watches. It's staying locked in when it's not exciting. And right now, people are starting to notice this gap that he has. Sleeping, not paying attention, ranting, raving, up all night between the performances and the reality. So yeah, this isn't about a clip of somebody nodding off. That ain't just what it's about. This is about the credibility of this president. And you can't say, I'm the guy, I've got this, turn over the economy to me. And then you were telling Joe Biden that he couldn't stay awake, that Joe Biden wasn't running the economy. So you ain't running the economy now? You ain't running the business now? You ain't running the government now? Okay, that's the problem. Because at the end of the day, people don't need a show. They don't need another moment. They don't need another slogan. They need somebody who's actually awake when it counts. That's it. That's the whole thing. Okay. Third video.
Stop the biggest tax increase in history. We made the President Trump's term 1 tax cuts permanent, but we also added no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Our great seniors can keep more of their Social Security and deductibility of the loans on American-made cars. And I can tell you that we've seen a disproportionate impact to the upside for all of Nevada and for Clark County in particular, that your refunds are higher than the national average.
That's crazy. You've been hearing about this big, beautiful bill, right? That's the one big, beautiful bill act passed by the Republicans. They sell it like we stopped your taxes from going up and gave you a tax break. But when you break that down, it's not that simple. First, why they keep saying Democrats wanted to raise your taxes. This goes back to the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that they passed in 2017. The law lowered taxes, but on purpose. A lot of those cuts were temporary. They were always scheduled to expire in 2025. So if nothing happened in 2026, tax rates would go back up. The standard deduction would shrink. Some credits would drop. Here's the key part. Republicans say if Democrats don't extend all of it, your taxes go up, or your taxes will go up. But what they're leaving out is this, that tax increase was already built into the law from day one. What Democrats were actually saying, they weren't saying raise taxes on everybody. They were saying keep the cuts for the regular people, let the cuts expire for the high earners. So the real fight wasn't tax cuts versus tax hikes. It was who should keep the tax cuts. The Democrats wanted us to keep the tax cuts and not give the billionaires and millionaires the tax cuts. So the real fight wasn't a tax versus tax hike. It was who gets to keep the taxes. The big, beautiful bill actually did. It locked in lower tax rates, 12%, something like that, kept the higher standard deduction, and added things like no tax on overtime and no tax on tips. Sounds great on paper, but it's not so great. Video 4.
In history, we made the President Trump's term 1 tax cut.
Tax on tips thing. It's fake. The law Trump passed and is bragging about does not include no tax on tips. It has a deduction up to $25,000 in tip income can be deducted from federal income tax. It doesn't say no tax on tips. You've got to report the tips, and we went over this last week. You've got to pay payroll taxes on them. You likely pay state taxes on them. So it's not no tax. You can deduct, but most tipped workers already pay little to no federal income tax. And that's because of something called the standard deduction of $14,000. So this is not primarily a show about tax policy, but it's important to consider that the average server will benefit zero or the teeniest, tiniest bit from this deduction on tips. It's not no tax on tips, but they keep saying.
But they keep saying that. But here's where the reality hits. Let's go back to the no tax on tip. For a lot of workers, that's not real money because many tipped workers already pay zero income tax, payroll taxes, still come out. Some could lose tax credits, actually get smaller refunds, and the biggest benefit goes to the higher earners. No low or income people are going to get that kind of money. So now put it all together. You're being told, and this is the big hype, it's been doing that for the past week, no tax on tip, no tax on tips. That doesn't apply to you regular people. That don't apply to y'all. So stop getting excited about Donald Trump giving you no tax on tip, no tax on tip. That don't apply to y'all. Okay. They keep saying we stopped a tax hike. We gave workers tax-free tips and overtime. But in reality, the tax hike was built into the old law. The new benefits don't help everyone equally, and a lot of working people won't see much difference at all. Nobody's seeing no big difference on their taxes. Ain't getting no, you're supposed to get 200, but you really get 2,000. Ain't none of that. The plain truth is, this whole argument about taxes is being framed like the Democrats wanted to raise your taxes and the others saved you from that. The Republicans always do that. It is the standard practice of Republicans to tell you that the Democrats want to raise your taxes. And it's never the Democrats that want to raise your taxes. It's always the Republicans that have something built in to raise your taxes. Okay. The tax cuts were already set to expire from the beginning. The Democrats had nothing to do with those taxes, those tax cuts. That was all Republicans. That the taxes were supposed to expire in 2026, the beginning of 2026. Okay? The real fight was about who was going to keep the tax cut. Poor people keep the tax cut or the rich people. The Republicans wanted the rich people to keep the tax cut and the poor people not to get the tax cut. So they passed the big, beautiful bill, and that big, beautiful bill had all the tax cuts in there for the rich, but none of the tax cuts for the poor. Everybody thought they were going. The Republicans know how to trick y'all. They just know how to trick y'all because y'all listen to that goofy shit they be saying. They don't know how to govern. Republicans don't know how to govern. They know how to give tax cuts, wreck the economy, and start wars. Those are the three things that they do when they get into power. That's it. Okay. And so that's it. It was no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. None of that is for y'all. It's just a gimmick that the Republicans put out there. So those are tonight's stories. Those are tonight's stories. So this is where we at. You've seen the stunts. You've heard the slogans. You watched the moments they want you to react to. No tax on tips. There's no such thing. Or the taxes were going to rise anyway. They keep saying, oh, the Democrats wanted to make your taxes rise. No, they didn't. They wanted the taxes to go up on the millionaires, but the taxes, we wanted to keep the taxes for the poor. And the Republicans wouldn't allow it. You watched the moments they wanted you to react to, but now you've seen what's behind it. It's a bunch of snake oil and McDonald's DoorDash people. This ain't about helping people. It's about selling something that sounds like help from the Republicans. At some point, people got to start catching on. Y'all got to look behind all of this. You got to start asking questions. You got to start looking past the performance and into the reality, because the real life doesn't run on these viral clips. It runs on the paychecks, the bills, the decisions that affect everybody. And no amount of prop or photo ops is going to change that. So the real question is simple. Are you going to keep reacting to this show that they putting on in Washington, that Donald Trump keeps putting on, or are you going to demand the real answers? Okay? Because at the end of the day, this is not about entertainment. This is real money. This is real lives. This is real pain that we got out here. So I want you guys to put in the comment section what you liked about the video, if you did or you didn't, however you wanted to do it. And I will see you tomorrow for tonight's Hot Topics with Flashpoint.